All wings report in.
HouseDog, standing by.
Mother Goose, standing by.
Lock S-foils in attack position. Animal Squadron ready for battle.
Hello there, and welcome back to the Animal Squadron podcast. I am your host, HouseDog, and with me, as always, my favorite person to fly around the galaxy with, Mother Goose.
Hey everybody.
How's you doing, man?
I am doing really good. How are you?
I'm good. I think I had a slight stroke there for a second, but
That's...
I'm ready for part 2 of this episode.
Are you okay?
It could be the overwhelming emotions that this episode brings is why I had a slight brain stroke there.
You right. This is the most emotional Star Wars, and I will die on that hill.
It does pull at the heartstrings. But I'm ready to get into it, Elijah.
Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah, we still have a lot to cover.
We do. We have a whole lot to cover. So if you're just now finishing with episode 1 and you're diving right back into episode 2, just to give you a quick reminder, if you're not one of those people, last time we left off, we were seeing Anakin and Obi-Wan say goodbye for the last time as master and apprentice. And Obi-Wan's getting ready to go to the planet Utapau to go find General Grievous. And it was very heartbreaking.
It really is. There's so much just emotion in that scene. Like, it's a happy goodbye for the characters, but as an audience member, you know that's the last time they see each other as brothers, basically.
It's no words for that scene.
No words.
Too hard for me. So picking up now, we see Obi-Wan getting ready to go to Utapau on one of the flagships that they have. And we're only 3 minutes into this podcast at this point?
Yeah.
And I'm already making a Clone Wars reference. We see our good friend Commander Cody and Obi-Wan back together again. Please watch Clone Wars.
Please watch Clone Wars.
Yes, they're getting ready to go to Utapau. And their relationship, you can tell they're close in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But again, if you watch Clone Wars, it hurts a lot more later whenever we see Cody and Obi-Wan again.
Yeah, there's a lot more to their relationship that you miss out
Right.
if you don't watch the Clone Wars.
I agree. So we flash back to Anakin and Padme again, and my next note is, another death promise. That's what I've started calling them now since we've begun this rewatch of all these movies is, Anakin makes a promise and people die.
Wow, surprise, surprise. That was actually my next note, too.
Despite all of your shortcomings, I think we work together quite well.
I'm going to choose to take that as a compliment.
I think that's a wise choice.
But yeah, it's just sad. Anakin loves these women so much. And I mean, just to clarify for anyone who doesn't know, I'm sure you do. That's his mother and his wife. But he just loves them, and he would do anything to keep them safe.
Right. So I really enjoy, even though he's a very minuscule character, the chairman of Utapau that Obi-Wan speaks with whenever he first lands there. I just think he's a super interesting guy. And I like the way he speaks. I like the way he looks. Just the whole way they did the Utapau's people look, even though they're a super minuscule race and place in the universe at this point.
Right. And something else I think that's very interesting from that scene is that Obi-Wan says, if you have warriors, now's the time. Which shows one reason why the Republic needed clones is that a lot of the planets were peaceful planets with no military. Now, That wasn't all. A lot of planets did have military, their own military, but many did not.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
I don't know. That was a very good point. I have nothing to say. It was very well worded, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I love the slick move that Obi-Wan pulls out there of just sending the speeder away back to the ship, and, he's hiding out behind, like, a wall.
Right.
Slick Obi-Wan.
Slick Obi-Wan. I'm just curious how he did it. Because, we don't really see, because he's in the speeder, and then it goes up, and we see him behind the wall. I'm very curious how he got out without the droids noticing him.
I'm guessing a good old force sprint,
Ooh.
a la Episode 1.
That's a good explanation. But I really enjoy when there are little things like that are left unexplained. And that way the audience...
Right, that you have to kind of make your own story for.
Right, yeah, it's a lot more interesting when you have moments like that.
I think so, too. If that's your Star Wars, that's your Star Wars.
Exactly.
So, I don't know why this rewatch, but I noticed it in the background there. Whenever Obi-Wan's riding the lizard thing out of, like, that hangar, in the background, one of the Utapau people has a giant spider on a leash.
What?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go rewatch that. Good.
You need to, because I don't like spiders. We've been friends for many years.
I know.
I just think of this giant spider, and it's literally like the size of the person leading it on the leash. And I'm like, why? Why are there giant spiders?
You're never going to that planet, are you?
No, never. If I ever have the opportunity, well, I might, just to go see the chairman and talk to him, because I think he's cool.
He was pretty cool.
If they get rid of the giant spiders, it'll become more of a yes than rather a maybe.
Got it. So that actually kind of ties into my next note. The lizard thing, its name is actually named Boga. I looked it up. I couldn't find the name of the species. I'm sure it's out there somewhere. I just couldn't find it. But that Obi-Wan's steed is actually named Boga. And I love her a lot. I think she was really cool. One of my favorite parts of the movie as a kid.
No, it's definitely an interesting creature.
Yeah.
It's a weird lizard.
A weird lizard.
But perfect for this planet.
Exactly. It fits really well.
With giant spiders and the creepy Utapau people.
The Utapau with their giant spiders.
Are you ready for the greatest, well, arguably one of the greatest lines in cinema history?
Let's do it.
All right. Good deal, because I actually have a bit to say about this scene.
Me too. Actually, I only have one note, but I'm sure I've got a lot to say too.
You know, Elijah, I write many notes, and you write one, but you have much to say within your one note.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're a very eloquent man, if I say so myself.
You too, my friend.
I would argue against that, but we'll see. Anyways, so before Obi-Wan jumps down and says hello there, I love watching him trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do here? I'm obviously outnumbered. It's just me here. My backup hasn't arrived. He does the classic Obi-Wan beard stroke, and you can tell that's when he gets the idea. He's like, I'm just going to jump down there.
Right. And I think, so Obi-Wan has multiple encounters with General Grievous throughout the Clone Wars. And he knows how General Grievous operates. He knows that he wants, how to phrase it, he's got a desire to kill, basically. Like, he wants to hunt down the Jedi, is what I'm trying to say.
He's pretty good at it.
Fantastic at it, if we're being honest.
I mean, he's got quite a few lightsabers.
Yeah, and so, I mean, everyone jokes about him wanting to add lightsabers to his collection. It's become a meme, but, I mean, really, he's almost like a serial killer, and those are his prizes, his trinkets that he takes along with him.
Right, it's almost like the Predator.
Yeah,
I just love Obi-Wan.
same. What a king.
He is. He gets ready to fight Grievous, and then all of a sudden Grievous has 4 arms, and they start spinning, and just the look on Obi-Wan's face is like, all right, I might be a little in over my head here.
A little bit, yes. But then they start fighting. Obi-Wan cuts off 2 of General Grievous's hands at this point. And General Grievous still, after having just lost 2 of his hands, has the cojones to tell Obi-Wan that he's doomed.
I mean, he was outnumbered. He didn't know the clones were coming, so in his head, he probably is doomed.
That is true. I just thought it was funny, the confidence that General Grievous had after losing 2 hands. Like, Dooku didn't have that confidence.
Yeah, but Dooku also didn't have 4 arms.
This is true.
I mean, from Grievous's point of view, he's got 2 more. Dooku had 0 left.
I know, I was just joking.
I have defeated your logic, sir.
You've won once again.
Are you ready for another background secret?
Yes.
Okay, good. I did not find this on my own. I just want to say that. I saw it on, someone had posted it. And after Grievous starts to try to make his escape in his, like, spinning wheel dirt bike, I don't know, it's cool.
It's really cool, yeah.
Grievous is, like, one-wheeled motorcycle. And Obi-Wan's chasing him. In the background of the hangar bay where Obi-Wan and Grievous started fighting, there's a clone fist fighting a droid to the death.
I have seen that, yeah.
Really?
Well, again, I wasn't the one who noticed. It was pointed out by other people on the internet.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant you had noticed it yourself, and I was like, wow, Elijah, good for you.
Thanks.
You finally defeated me in looking for things in the background.
Mwahaha.
And then I've come to find out that's a lie.
One day, my friend.
One day. But
Okay,
not today.
but that is awesome, though.
It is. So, you don't like the Jedi very much.
Listen, I love the Jedi. I just want to be clear. I love the Jedi. But
I don't think you do. I think you've said many opposite things in that nature against the
listen,
Jedi.
the Jedi are great. But this is the Jedi at their lowest. Well, before you know. But I do think the Jedi at this point really were unbalanced. I do think that they were still following the Force, but I think they were also blind to it as well, if that makes sense. Like, they were trying to follow it, but they were doing it wrong? Not that they were... Not...
I would say that they weren't even following the Force at this point. I would say after Qui-Gon died, it was over.
Yeah. Qui-Gon, I think, was the last, like, true, like, I serve the Force, and I only serve the Force. The rest of the Jedi, I do believe that they were trying to follow the Force, but they were also trying to follow the Senate and the Republic, and so their loyalties were divided.
No, I completely agree. Like I said, after Qui-Gon, I think it was over for him.
Yeah.
He was the last real voice crying out in the desert.
The real hope. And again, I will die on this hill. I really don't think... Actually, wait, I might not die on this hill. I really think there's a good chance that Anakin would have stayed on the light if he was raised and trained by Qui-Gon.
I have no doubt that he would have.
Yeah. Anyway, you had a point to all of this.
Yes, I did. The only reason I said that was to segue into our next scene.
which are we going to talk about? Is it Order 66 time?
No.
Okay, good, because I have a note before that. I just wanted to make sure.
There's quite a bit that happens before then.
Right. I don't know. I just was thinking, okay, he's bringing up how the Jedi kind of aren't the best. Maybe he's trying to segue into, their deaths.
You should know me better than that I have so much more notes before something major like that happens.
Okay, I just...
No, anyways, I said all this to bring up Mace Windu's line in the little meeting room.
Right, okay.
Where we see a few Jedi Masters talking, and they get done with their meeting. It was just a field report that Obi-Wan had made contact with General Grievous, and everything was looking all right.
And I've got a note for here, too, before we move on.
Do you? Okay.
But, I mean, go ahead and say your note.
We see Mace Windu. Yeah, Mace Windu says, well, I sense a plot to, destroy the Jedi. And I'm like, really, bud? You're just now noticing that.
You're just now noticing.
So I guess it's a good thing you went off on your wild tangent about how terrible the Jedi are, because this kind of proves you right.
Yeah, again, I love the Jedi. I just think that they'd fallen from grace.
It's okay that you don't love the Jedi. We know you don't love the Jedi. We get it. You're dying on your hill. We understand.
The Clone War Jedi were blinded and they'd fallen from grace. And so I don't think obviously they are Jedi, but we can't just say that's what all the Jedi were like after there literally being thousands of years of Jedi,
Yeah, no, you can't make a broad statement like that. They're not all the same.
Yeah.
But for the people that are leading them, they're pretty trash.
Yeah. Yeah. And, especially watch the Clone Wars. You get to see so many great moments of the Jedi being, really just good people. They weren't bad people. They were just kind of blinded to the Force.
Yes. So, what was your big note here?
Okay.
I'm really want to know.
I don't know if you noticed, but this is...
If you're playing the at-home Animal Squadron podcast drinking game, you just took a shot.
I thought that was every time we said right. Or is that...
Oh, no, I forgot to tell you. My mom started her own Animal Squadron podcast drinking game, so I think that's one of the phrases that you have to drink at.
I don't know if you noticed.
Yes.
Okay, I'll make sure to say that as much as I can.
I welcome that.
Anyway, so I don't know if you noticed or not, but that scene we actually get to see in the Clone Wars. But it actually goes a little longer in the Clone Wars. So they have their discussion with Obi-Wan. Mace Windu says, I see a plot to destroy the Jedi, blah, blah, blah. It ends, it cuts to a different scene. Seconds after that, if it didn't cut away, we would have seen Ahsoka. Now, obviously, she wasn't a character yet. We wouldn't have actually seen Ahsoka. But we do get to see that scene again in the Clone Wars. It pans over, the door opens, and Ahsoka walks through.
Right, in Season 7.
Yeah. Watch the Clone Wars. Especially if you like...
Please watch the Clone Wars.
Especially if you like The Mandalorian. Ahsoka's gonna be in there. Spoilers.
You think Ahsoka's gonna be in The Mandalorian?
Yeah, no, she's already been casted. She'll be in the next...
I'm pretty sure those are just rumors.
No, I promise. No, she was in the artwork for the poster.
You'll have to send me that.
Yes, I will send it. So
I've heard many different things regarding Ahsoka Tano being in Season 2 of Mandalorian.
Okay, I'm like... Now you've got me doubting. Let's say I'm 99% sure she's going to be in there. I could be wrong.
Are you willing to die on this hill, my friend?
I'm willing to get severely injured on this hill.
Say in the name of Darth Jar Jar right now.
Okay, Actually, I really want to know. So you move on to your next point, and I'm going to just look this up real quick.
Okay. So my next point was Anakin going to visit our boy Chancellor Palpatine again. He's my favorite life coach. He once again tells Anakin how great he is, but Anakin finally figures out that he's the evil Sith Lord they've been searching after this whole time.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I do have a note for this scene.
I have many as well. I have many theories. Well, at least one theory.
Good. Okay, real quick. So right now it looks like there's not a official confirmation that I'm seeing. But it's saying Rosario Dawson, I probably pronounced that wrong, is reportedly playing Ahsoka Tano in Season 2 of The Mandalorian. And I'm also finding many other articles confirming this.
What website are you reading that off of right now?
I just closed it. Give me a second.
I mean, it doesn't matter that much. I probably don't know it.
I'll send you the link.
That'll be perfect.
Cool.
I may or may not read it. One of my theories about this is, how does Palpatine know about him and Padme? I mean, obviously we know about Padme, and we've known about him and Padme, but how does Palpatine know?
So I think, again, same thing with how he's got such knowledge over the Jedi. I think it comes from two things. One, the dark side is, helping him, giving him some knowledge here and there. Two, he is the Chancellor. I think he has spies everywhere.
I agree. He's got to have Padme's apartment bugged.
Oh, yeah.
There's no way.
No doubt.
I think one of the most interesting things he says in that exchange between him and Anakin is he mentions how Anakin's a pawn of the Jedi, when in reality, Anakin's been his pawn for like a decade now.
I know, it makes me so angry. I do think it's hard because obviously Anakin's life really wasn't his own. As soon as he became a Jedi, he had to follow the Council. He had to follow their rules. But I would not classify him as a pawn of the Jedi. He just had to live by their rules.
No, he was just believing in something.
Yeah, exactly. But Palpatine, on the other hand,
he was the man with the plan.
He was. And so something I really, really love about this scene is, we talked about it in the last episode a little bit, is the color of Anakin's actual robes. Because obviously he's wearing mostly black clothing. And I'm not sure if it was just the lighting and it made the robes look a different color, or if he did have two different colored robes. But in this scene, his robe is brown. So he's got the brown robe over the black clothing. And I think just visually that is representing the struggle that's going on inside of him. And even just through clothing, it's showing how his fate isn't really set yet. Because there's a really good chance. I mean, he reports Palpatine. We'll get to that in a minute. He makes the right decision at first. He's still a Jedi.
He should have killed Palpatine. Excuse me. He should have killed Palpatine right there.
Ooh. Yeah, you're probably right. But I do think that was good of him to go talk to to Mace Windu and the Council, and to give them a heads up. Hey, how are we going to handle this? I think that was the right Jedi thing to do. But I also think killing him would have been the right thing to do, if that makes sense.
Of course it would have been the right decision. His life would have been infinitely better.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Well, there is a chance, if he'd killed Palpatine right there, he might have spent the rest of life in prison. Because he may not have been able to prove that Palpatine was a Sith Lord. to the Senate?
Well, they would have found Palpatine's body. They would have found the hidden lightsaber in his cloak, and it would have been red. So
Okay, that is true.
that's just me playing detective there.
But also, counterpoint, there were so many people that were loyal to Palpatine, they might have gotten to the body first, and they might have hid any Sith-related artifacts that were on him.
Then they could always test his midichlorian count.
That is true. And they would have seen he had a high midichlorian count. And I think the Jedi would have believed him. I think the Jedi would have stood by Anakin 100%. Well, maybe not 100, but mostly. But again, the Senate loved Palpatine. I mean, they voted him in even after his term was supposed to be over.
So do you think we would have seen like a reverse Order 66 of where it's not everybody, or it's not... The Jedi would have been the bad guys, like the real bad guys seen by like the public, so the Senate would have come after them?
That's possibly. If the Jedi handled the situation wrong, any of Palpatine's supporters could have turned the Senate against the Jedi, especially if they were trying to protect Anakin.
Which, I mean, is basically what they did anyways,
Right.
But
Um,
this would have been actually real. Okay, we're getting into so many things.
right, sorry. Anyway.
So Anakin's a pawn.
Anakin's a pawn. Poor Anakin.
And do you have anything else to say about that?
No.
Great. We flash back to Utapau, and I just want to know why Obi-Wan's fighting Grievous. He kicks him in his leg.
I don't know.
Why was that a good idea?
I mean, he's probably punched and kicked battle droids, at least regular battle droids, maybe not super battle droids, but I mean, we see in the 2D Clone Wars, I mean, Mace Windu loses his lightsaber and takes out so many super battle droids with just his fist. So the Jedi probably, at least Obi-Wan might have thought that his leg was somewhat similar to a battle droid's leg.
But it was
It
not.
was not.
In any way, shape, or form.
Not at all.
I just thought that was hilarious.
Yeah. So my next note is Obi-Wan, master of the high and low ground.
He is the master of the low ground, but he uses an uncivilized weapon.
He does. So what made me think of that is, first we have him in episode 1. He's obviously got the low ground. Does a very similar flip to someone else who we'll talk about in a moment. Gets a lightsaber and comes out victorious. And then episode 3, again, it's an uncivilized weapon, but he still wins the day from the low ground.
You just can't keep Obi-Wan down.
You really can't. And I honestly appreciate the fact that he used a blaster to win.
He did. But I like how Obi-Wan, after he sees Grievous like catch on fire and then literally burst, he checks to see if Grievous is really dead.
I mean, I think it's smart. I mean, he was mostly droid. And maybe it goes back to earlier when he cut off one of Grievous's droids. I can't remember the name.
The Magna Guards?
Yes, after he cut off one of the Magna Guards' heads and they kept fighting.
I think you're correct.
Thank you.
But it is General Grievous, so you never know. He could explode and come back.
That is true. Now there was Legends lore where basically his body got sold around and like people were trying to rebuild him. It never panned
Right.
out.
No, there was like a whole... I think there was some like... it was either like you said, a Legends book, or maybe like a computer game or something, like some crazy doctor scientist like winds up getting his whole body and tries to bring Grievous back, but he's more of a machine than he was before,
Right.
and he winds up like killing the doctor, right?
Yeah, I think so.
It's a very interesting story. It's weird, but you should definitely look it up if you're interested in it.
Yeah, it is really interesting. Definitely, I think it's a book or maybe a comic. But I'm pretty sure it's a book.
It might be both.
It actually might.
Maybe it's a book comic.
Because I feel like there were a couple attempts to bring Grievous back, not just the one.
There might be two.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, what is your next note, my friend?
It's about Anakin being told to stay while Mace Windu goes to see if he's really, if Palpatine's really the Sith Lord that they think he is.
Right.
And we see Anakin alone on the balcony, waiting, while, oh, he's not on the balcony, excuse me, he's in the Jedi temple, and Padme's on the balcony at their apartment.
Right, and he's crying.
And, right, we see, no, he cries later.
Oh, well, my bad.
You're thinking of Mustafar.
No, he cries.
Why must I always he cries there?
Yeah. I mean, it's not like a full-on, like, sobbing, but he is crying a little bit. There are tears.
Maybe you're crying.
I was crying, but I was not the only one crying.
Okay, so anyways, he's at the temple, she's on the balcony, and we see it later in the next trilogy of how Luke can contact Leia with the Force, and I think right here we see that. I think Padme feels Anakin make the decision to go to the temple and either stop the Chancellor from being arrested or whatever he has to do to save her.
Right.
I think she fully feels through the Force Anakin's conflict and choice right there.
Yeah. Which...
Do you think so as well?
No, I completely agree.
That was just what I took away from it. The way that scene's shot and both of their expressions and just what's going on around. And then what happens later between him and her.
Right.
I just think there's a Force connection there. I think there has to be.
Yeah, definitely. Which... My literal next note is, it's when he's running to his ship. I just wrote, Anakin, no, in all caps.
Anakin, yes.
No, Anakin. So Mace Windu says before he leaves, I don't remember the exact line, but if this is true what you're saying, you will have my trust. And I know we're not the first person to point this out, but I really believe that if Anakin had just stayed, Mace Windu would have made Anakin a master when he got back.
It's certainly possible.
Because, Mace has made it clear that he doesn't really trust Anakin. And so I think that's a very important line when he tells Anakin, you will have my trust.
Right, no, I think it's an important line, yes, but I think after the war, Anakin may have become a master. It's just hard to know, because we'll never know how it would have happened.
That is true.
There's so many events that you'd have to undo in order to get to that alternate happy reality.
Right. Yeah. So, Disney, if you just want to make a Star Wars What If series, that'd be pretty cool, I guess.
Not Disney. I want Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau to make a What If. I
Dave
want them to make everything Star Wars from now on.
Yes.
I don't want anyone else to touch it.
I don't know.
That sounds really mean, but it's what I want.
I would also love to see George Lucas get to make his prequel or his sequel trilogy.
I mean, it's not like he has oversight on everything.
Well, okay. Yeah. But like he did have a way that he wanted his story to end. I mean, he had the outlines, Disney bought them. I just would like to see his finished story. Cuz this is, I mean, it's in Bob Iger's book. This is not the sequel trilogy that we got is not, it's not what George Lucas had originally written.
I think anyone could guess that.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you've watched the previous 6 films.
Yeah. Anyway, we're really off topic. I'm sorry. So next we have the Masters approaching. Good old Palps.
We do. I love Sheev's 920 spin from a chair.
And his dark side scream.
Yes. The scream that haunts my dreams to this day.
Right. Which, I mean, a lot of people think is cringe, but it is an important dark side technique. It's how he got the advantage over the other 3 masters.
I don't have a problem with his scream. I think it's cool.
I don't either. But we're in the generation that grew up with the prequels, so I think we're a little more excited by it.
That's true. And the only time we've seen the Emperor is whenever he just sits in a chair all the time or walks with Vader places.
Right?
That's it.
Yeah. I think it was amazing because it's the same thing with Yoda. You don't become...
Right. I was about to say the same thing.
You don't become the, like, literal master Dark Lord of the Sith without knowing lightsaber techniques.
And you're referring to Emperor Palpatine, right?
Yes. Not Darth Jar Jar.
I wasn't sure you would catch it.
Oh.
I wanted to rub it in your face, but you caught it.
I'm always thinking.
So yeah, he does that sweet 920 spin, and then the last one surviving besides Mace is my boy Kit Fisto, and then he dies. And I was really upset about that.
Me too.
Before you watch Clone Wars, you're like, oh, it's just a bunch of like other Jedi Masters dying. After you watch Clone Wars, you'll be like, Kit Fisto was my friend. He was the best. And now he's dead.
And let's just talk about, to our listeners, if you've never compared an image of Kit Fisto in Attack of the Clones to Kit Fisto in Revenge of the Sith, the Clone Wars were not kind to him. I would recommend looking it up.
Does he look different?
Yeah. Yeah, he's a lot skinnier. Like, his face is like... It's like... Definitely look it up. It's almost like to the bone. If that makes sense.
Are you talking about... You said Attack of the Clones, right?
Yeah. Not Clone Wars.
Okay. Because his face is obviously a little bit different in
right, of course.
Animation.
So when I say the Clone Wars were not kind, I mean just in general, like the actual Clone Wars, not Clone Wars the series.
Right. Okay. I'm with you
cool.
now.
But yes, that broke my heart too. He was one of my favorite Jedi.
No, Kit Fisto's the best.
Right?
He's so cool. Him and Plo Koon were like probably 2 Jedi that I loved learning about the most from Clone Wars.
Yeah. Yeah.
And both of them have 0 lines in the cinematic movies.
I know. It's kind of hard when you only have 3 films to
But that's the great thing about not just Clone Wars, but the other shows that we get. We get to explore these characters that may have had 0 lines in one of the movies, but now he's got this super deep, rich history that whenever we watch Clone Wars and then we see Kit Fisto be stabbed in, like 20 seconds, it's like, no. I just hear, that one song, "There Goes My Hero." And then he dies because it's only that long.
And again, I think something else people say is like, oh, aren't these supposed to be like Jedi Masters, like the best of the best Jedi? Why'd they die so easily? Most of these Jedi have never interacted with a Sith before. Like, it had been 1,000 years since they'd seen a Sith. Obi-Wan killed the first one. Anakin killed...
No, he didn't.
He did. Not at that moment.
Much later.
Much later,
though.
But he did. Obi-Wan defeated the first one.
That's a better wording that I like.
But he did still technically kill him.
Technically,
yes.
Back to episode 3.
Yes. Anyway, my whole point is they'd never had to really interact with a Sith Lord before, especially one that was that powerful.
Right. Not as powerful as Jar Jar, but pretty close.
I think really Anakin's the only one who could even come close to Darth Jar Jar.
Well, besides Grandmaster 3PO, of course.
Of course, Grandmaster 3PO. But, you know, he's a pacifist.
No. C-3PO believes all of the opposite. He's just the Grandmaster of the Jedi.
He's an anti-pacifist.
I understand you're only versed in the ways of Darth Jar Jar, but I will teach you the ways of Grandmaster C-3PO.
Please do. Anyway.
I will.
So, something I think that's really interesting is, if to our listeners, if you haven't listened to the actor for Palpatine, I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Ian McDiarmid.
Ian McDiarmid. He does an interview where he talks about that fight with Mace Windu, and he kind of talks about how uncomfortable he was, because he'd never done a fight scene like that before, and so they had to do it really slow, and so it's everything we're seeing is sped up a lot, which is really interesting. And I would have talked about this in episode 1, but I just found this out. Ian McGregor also did an interview. Turns out his fight with Darth Maul in episode 1, they were moving so fast they had to slow it down.
Right. Well, I really always urge people to watch like the making of the movie. You know, like the commentary that comes with the movie, or like on the special features disc, you have like the making of the Phantom Menace or whatever. I always watch those because I think they're, a lot of times to me, they're more interesting than the movie itself, because you find out those crazy things that, you know, Ewan McGregor is fighting Ray Park faster than the cameras can keep up, so they have to go back and slow it down just so it can look good on a movie screen.
Yeah.
Thank you for your facts, Elijah.
You're welcome. This leads us to our next point, I believe, unless you have anything else to say about the fight.
Of course I have more things to say.
See?
Jeez.
You get mad at me.
I'm getting so tired of you.
You get mad at me and you're like, Elijah, I'm tired of running this podcast by myself, but then I try and run things and you're like, you're moving too fast.
Well, that's because I move at a snail's pace and you move at large events pace.
That is true. I wasn't done talking about that scene, but maybe just the fight in general. Anyway, what are your notes, my friend?
Oh, well, I guess it's at the end. Excuse me again. The end of the fight where it's Mace that's, or is it Palpatine that says you must choose?
To who?
To Anakin.
Okay.
Anakin's there now.
Yes.
That's where I'm at.
So, okay, so you're actually ahead of me. Shame,
I'm sorry.
shame.
I take back my yell.
No,
It's Mace, right?
you must choose. I don't know. I really don't know. So Anakin runs in right basically as Mace Windu has defeated Palpatine. First, can we just appreciate how powerful of a duelist Mace Windu is? Sometimes it's easy to look at Palpatine and say, oh, he's just an old man. But this is one of, if not the most powerful Sith there ever was.
I mean, I don't think you can doubt his power whenever he does a 920 spin out of a chair.
Right. Anyway, I really don't know. But there is another very important line that needs to be talked about. So I'll let you get to your line, your note.
The next note I have is just about Force lightning.
Okay, cool. So I've got a couple notes before that.
Okay, go for it.
I just want to talk about Anakin's struggle in this scene because
Is this the line? Sorry to interrupt you. Is this the line earlier that you said would come back later in the movie?
I'm getting there, yes.
Okay, because I'm going to be honest. I've been thinking about that ever since we recorded part 1 the other day, and I was like, I can't believe through watching this movie so many years, I mean, this came out in 2005, right?
Yes.
So, like, 15 years of me watching this movie, and I've just never thought of it, and then you bring it up. So I've been wanting to hear that again come back ever since then.
Cool. Yeah, I'm just about there. Anakin right now is just so desperate to save his wife. He loves Padme so much, and his heart is breaking because the Jedi have basically, well, not the Jedi, but Yoda has basically told him to let go. And now he sees this hope, and it just makes me so sad because I think to myself, like, what would I do in that situation if I 100% thought that this man laying on the ground was the only way I could save my wife and my future children? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know if I would make a different choice.
Well, I mean, on one hand, he's got his wife and unborn child, like you said, and on the other, he's got everything else in his life. You know, Obi-Wan, I would say, is like one of the biggest factors because that's all he really has left. I mean, none of the other Jedi really interact with him the way that he and Obi-Wan do.
Right.
Or trust him for that matter.
Yeah. And we really see just how much Mace Windu trusts Anakin in this scene. I mean, like we talked about earlier, Mace said, if what you say is true, you will have my trust, and we can see that in this scene. I don't think he had any idea that Anakin was going to betray him.
Even though he was so leery of Anakin, I doubt he thought that he would cut his arm off.
Yeah. Okay, so now it's time to talk about it.
Finally.
Okay.
Go. I'm waiting.
Okay. So, just to recap for our listeners, because this will, be 2 weeks since the last episode. It's only a couple days for us. After Anakin kills Count Dooku, he is just really, really mad at himself. He realizes that was not the right thing to do. And Palpatine says, and I made sure to write down both of these lines exactly because they're basically the same, a little different. Palpatine says he was too dangerous to be kept alive. And we've got now Mace Windu standing over Palpatine. Anakin is begging him not to kill Palpatine. And Mace Windu says, give me a second, I lost my place. He says, he's too dangerous to be kept alive. Really, the only difference is one was present tense, one was past tense. But in this moment, it really sticks out to Anakin because he knows at this point that Palpatine is a Sith, and now he's got a Sith and a Jedi saying the exact same thing, and the lines for him are blurring, and he's already been thinking it, but it's just another thing where he's saying, well, maybe the Jedi aren't the heroes.
It's Duel of the Fates once again.
It's Duel of the Fates once again.
It's always there. Has been since the start.
I just think it's beautiful, beautiful writing because there's so much in like the subtext of this film.
Right. I feel like this one, as opposed to the last two films, we get a lot less like Shakespearean, in my opinion. You know, like how the last two were very like in the way they talked, the way things moved.
It was
like this one's a lot more like, I'm pretty sure I said it in the last episode. A lot more happens in this episode, non-verbally than verbally.
right.
In my opinion.
I completely agree. And I mean, I know I didn't have like that deep of stuff to say about it, but it is just really important because Anakin doesn't know who the real hero is.
No, to him it's, which is why I don't understand why people have a hard time with seeing Anakin fall in this episode, as far as like, okay, we went from the start of it, he was like, him and Obi were best friends, and now they're trying to kill each other. Like, how did that happen? Like, no, it's not just one movie that his descent to the dark side started happening. It happens from episode 1.
I think it happens from his birth, if we're being honest.
Really? You think that far back? I don't know if I'd say that far back, because he hasn't had any influence yet.
Okay, so think about this, though. Palpatine...
Are you trying to say he was predisposed to the dark side because the midichlorians were influenced by Darth Plagueis?
No, but they could have...
Because I would say it was the Force that did this, Elijah. I would say it was all the Force.
Okay, but it was Plagueis and Palpatine who chose who his mother would be. They could have chose anyone, and yet they chose someone who was a slave.
Did they choose Shmi, or did the Force choose Shmi?
Either way, Shmi got chosen. And so...
Either way, I'm going to argue with you at every point and say it was the Force.
Okay.
Because it's the ultimate argument, and it always works to just go, the Force did it.
So let's say it was the Force. I really think...
Oh, no, let's not say it was the Force.
gosh.
It was the Force.
My whole point, though, is that I think they wanted Anakin to grow up a slave so that when he did join the Jedi, he would have this feeling of, my life has never been my own. So maybe Palpatine may not have been directly manipulating Anakin. He still set him up for failure, if that makes sense.
Or did the Force set him up for failure?
Or did the Force? I really do think... I am a strong believer in the fact that both the Jedi and the Sith needed to die. Both were unbalanced. And that Anakin had to destroy both orders, basically. So yes, it was the Force, Mac. HouseDog.
Yes. Thank you.
Anyway, shall we start talking about the lightning?
Yes, I would like to talk about the lightning.
Okay, let's talk about the lightning.
You didn't have to say it like that, but yes, let's talk about the lightning.
You didn't have to
That
come
you think
at me.
is so funny.
You didn't have to come
That you
at me
think is
with
so
the light,
funny.
with the Force.
I will get Grandmaster C-3PO in here right now.
No. Not unless you want me to call Darth Lord of the Sith Darth Jar Jar. Anyway.
He's nothing.
Go ahead.
You know, growing up with more of the original trilogy, well, I mean, we had the prequels for longer than the original because we're young, but before episode 3, we just had the original trilogy and then the first 2 prequels for us.
Right.
We're introduced to Palpatine. He's not ugly yet, but whenever we see him in the old trilogy, you know, he's this disgusting, like, frog man creature thing. So I love how it was the Force lightning that made him into what his true self is, in my opinion.
Ooh.
You know, because Palpatine, whenever we see him in younger days, you know, he's not a bad-looking dude. He seems very, you know, charismatic and like somebody you probably like enjoy having conversations with or hanging around. He was very approachable, is what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean?
Right. So that actually is my next point. And I think this is what you were trying to say, but I'm not sure if I understood you fully. I don't think he was disfigured by the lightning. I think he lost his mask that he was wearing, basically. Not like an actual mask, but more like a force masking. So he made himself through the force appear like a charismatic man, someone you could come and talk to. But his disfigured face was caused by the dark side corruption, and that's what he really looked like the whole time. It's just the lightning revealed what was under the mask.
Right, you can interpret it literally or figuratively, and it works either way.
Right, yeah. And there's a line in the novelization of Revenge of the Sith that kind of goes along with this. And I don't remember the line exactly, but I think it's something along the lines of, and so the mask becomes the man? Maybe? I'll have to look it up.
Either way, that was beautifully worded.
Thank you. I mean, I didn't write it, but if that was the writing.
But you just spoke it to me.
Ah.
I just got to hear it with my ears.
Well, good. Yes. Thank you.
And then, of course, Anakin chopping off Windu's arm. He flies out the window. Bada bing, bada boom. And immediately Anakin is just awestruck that he actually did this. And he says, what have I done? And that line is heartbreaking.
It really is.
Because he collapses to his, he kind of falls back a little bit. He takes a couple steps back and, sits down on a little ottoman or something.
Yeah.
And is just immediately like, what have I done? And I've had these thoughts in the back of my head this whole time, but now I actually carried out the action. I'm a murderer, just like I was a few years ago whenever my mom got killed and I killed an entire camp of Tusken Raiders. But those were basically, mindless savages. That's how I would, what's the word?
See it?
Justify it. Yeah, that's how I would justify it if I was in Anakin's shoes and I had killed all the Tusken Raiders. But now he killed a master that he's known for, over a decade now.
Right. And
someone that probably gave him a lot of lessons and stuff, and he led him to his death.
Yeah. And that line is so heartbreaking because even though it's not on the same level, I think it's something that we can all relate to. We've all done something rash without thinking, just we did it. And the second it's over, we realize, oh gosh, what have I just done?
Right.
And again, not on that same level as murdering a master, but we've all been overcome by our emotions and just acted without thinking.
Which is why Anakin's fall is so relatable and understandable.
Which is why Anakin's fall is so heartbreaking.
So after that, we get a little musical interlude again right there of Anakin becoming Darth Vader, and we get to hear the Vader music just slightly in the background.
Okay, so I've been thinking about it. You know how we've been talking about this guy in his hood and how we weren't really sure who he was? I'm pretty sure the guy in the hood was Palpatine the whole time.
I just now got your joke, but yes. Because we get to see him put on the hood.
Yeah.
I was reading my next note and trying to think about how to phrase it because to me it's a really big point. We're probably going to talk about it for 2 seconds now that I've hyped it up in my brain.
Cool.
So not only is this scene's called the birth of Vader or something, the one where Emperor Palpatine dubs him Darth Vader.
Yeah.
It's called the birth of Vader or something like that. I think. I don't know. I could be making that up in my head. But to me, that's the birth of Vader. Not whenever he, gets his new body, but right there in that moment in the Chancellor's office, that is the birth of Darth Vader.
Right.
So not only is it the birth of Darth Vader, but it's also where the conflict inside of Anakin is born.
Right.
The conflict of Anakin and Vader, who are two different people from a certain point of view.
No, I completely agree. They are not the same person.
Because this is where we start to see, and I'll bring it up here in the next couple scenes as we start getting
Yes.
more towards the end about conflict and things like that. But even here, we see that Anakin's not fully gone to the dark side.
Right.
Because he tells the Emperor, I'll do whatever I have to, just tell me how to save Padme.
Right. Which I have a point on that.
Well, please tell me.
So, like you were saying, he hasn't fully committed to the dark side at this point, and Palpatine gives a masterful line where he tells Anakin that only after he kills the Jedi in the temple will he have enough strength to save Padme.
Right, after they wipe out the last of the Jedi.
Right, because
Will he be strong enough?
I don't think he says strong enough in the dark side, just to clarify. Because he knows that Anakin is still struggling with that. He still has a heart, but he knows that he'll do anything to save Padme. And walking out of the temple, he will be a completely different person than he was walking in.
Well, to cheat death is a power only one has achieved.
Only one. Which is something else I wanted to point out. He doesn't even tell Anakin that we can for sure save Padme. It was more of a, you get strong enough in the dark side, we'll figure it out together.
Right, which is another lie.
Of course.
So do you have anything else to add about the birth of Vader and Palpatine in his office?
No, just really that it was a masterfully shot and written scene.
That helps you understand the fall of Anakin if you just look at it a little bit deeper.
Just a little bit deeper.
But my next note is nothing profound. It's just how cool the March of the 501st led by Anakin into the Jedi Temple is.
It really does look cool. And so something else that we learn, I think it's in Rebels, or it might be in, this is for sure canon, so it might have been in a book, but the Inquisitor we first meet in Rebels, I don't remember what his number is, but
That's a big reveal. Are you talking about the Grand Inquisitor?
Maybe, yes.
He's bald.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the Grand Inquisitor. That's a pretty big reveal in Rebels.
What he does here at this moment?
Well, who the Grand Inquisitor actually is.
Okay.
Or was.
So this actually ties into this scene, though, because there's something very important that he does.
Okay, well, spoiler alert if you haven't watched Rebels. If you haven't watched Rebels, skip like the next, minute of this talk?
Yeah, we probably won't be talking about it too long, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
I do.
Okay. So at this point, he's already fallen to the dark side. And there are the Temple Guardians, and that's something I've heard a lot of people basically say is, why didn't the Temple Guardians basically let them into the temple? The Grand Inquisitor kind of, killed the Guardians so that they wouldn't be around when Anakin and the clones showed up.
Setting himself up for success. But you don't find out that the Grand Inquisitor was a Jedi in the temple until, the last season, I think.
Sorry. Wait, I thought he died in the first season.
He does, but Kanan has a Force vision in, the last season.
Anyway, sorry about that, everybody. I just thought it was very important to bring up.
It is another tie-in.
Because, that's something that really bothered me, was why, because we don't see them in the fight at the temple. I mean, they all have yellow lightsabers. They have a very distinct look.
Right, but I don't think we see any the Temple Guardians until like Clone Wars. The series.
I think you're correct. I think they were legends. I believe is when they first came into play. But obviously that's not canon anymore.
I mean, cinematically we don't see them.
Cinematically, canon-wise, we don't see them as well.
Until Clone Wars.
Right.
And Rebels.
But can we just, for a second, I'm sorry, can we just talk about how cool the Temple Guardians are?
Temple Guardians are cool, but it also be like, people think being a Jedi is a super lonely life. Just read about the Temple Guardians a little bit, and you'll think their lives are even worse.
Yeah, without a doubt. Anyway, let's get into the temple. Sorry about that little tangent.
It's okay. So, they enter the temple, and just the massacre begins. But we get the flashback to Utapau, and things are still happy for a second.
They're winning. They're winning
for
the
a
fight.
Second. They're winning. They got the droids on the run. Obi-Wan gets to see his good friend Commander Cody again and get his lightsaber back.
For now.
And again, watch Clone Wars to understand the relationship better. And this is another, I don't know if you noticed moment, but Commander Cody is the first one to receive the call about Order 66.
Yeah.
Emperor Palpatine calls him directly, calls him by name, and tells him that it's time for Order 66 to start, which I hadn't really thought about till this rewatch, but of course he calls Anakin's master, because who would have the best influence on a newly turned Sith than his former master, who he knows is like his brother.
Right.
So again, the Emperor's a genius, but Obi-Wan's better.
Yeah. So I've really thought about this. I really think that he called Cody individually, like you said, to make sure that Obi-Wan was wiped out as soon as possible. And then he probably just did a mass call. Because, I mean, there were fights going on all over the galaxy. It probably would...
Well, that's how it plays out in the movie. Cody is the only one that gets called personally. Right. The rest are just like a pre-recorded message.
Yeah. It just breaks it, like, but the first time I saw it, I was shocked. I really was. But then after watching Clone Wars and you get to see Cody and their relationship, it just breaks my heart.
It does. It just sucks.
There's
no other way to say it. It just sucks.
I will, again, die on this hill. The Jedi needed to die to be reborn anew, balanced truly in the Force. But that doesn't mean it was fun to watch.
It was not fun to watch because we get Ki-Adi-Mundi, one of the Jedi Masters who's on the Council, on the war-torn planet of Megiddo, trying to rally his troops. They've got the droids on the run. And then suddenly he looks behind him and all of his troops have their weapons aimed at him. And then he just gets destroyed.
Yeah. And I mean, he was being... we see it almost from the clones' perspective as they're shooting at him, but we also have to remember that there were droids on the other side of that bridge, too. Like, there was no way he was getting out of that situation.
All right. Well, I would say that Aayla Secura's death is way worse than Ki-Adi-Mundi's.
Oh, yeah.
On the so we go to the planet of Felucia. Aayla Secura is with her battalion, of course, and they're walking through the jungle. And if you watch it really carefully, they get the call, and they all, raise their blasters and everything. And Secura doesn't look at them. She checks the surroundings because she thinks they're about to be attacked by enemies. And then just a full-on blaster party starts raining on her back.
I hate it so much.
It's so sad because she never thought that she'd be turned on. Well, of course she wouldn't. Why would she? The clones were so loyal.
Right. And they, like, again, you watch the Clone Wars, but they were friends. These people were their friends. I mean, yes, they're a massive clone army, but we see multiple times throughout the series that, like Yoda says, each clone looks differently in the Force.
Right.
Plo Koon tells them that they're not just clones to him. Ayla Secura has an amazing relationship with her clone troopers. It's just so sad.
Nothing like the 501st, though.
Nothing like the 501st.
It's sad.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the younglings. Yeehaw!
Okay, so I really wish we would have, not the younglings, I really wish they would have spent just a little longer inside the temple. With Anakin actually maybe fighting other Jedi Masters. But I also think what we got works really well. So have you seen the theory that not the older younglings that got cut down in, like, the middle of the temple, but the actual group that he goes to, and we see, they ask him, what are we gonna do? Anyway, have you seen the theory that basically says that Anakin knew the younglings were in there, and he told the clones that they were not allowed to enter? And he basically told the kids, like, hey, close your eyes and turn around, and kind of peacefully murdered them instead of brutally murdering them in adult-on-child combat.
So he pulled a of mice and men on
Yes,
him.
that's actually what I was thinking of.
I like ketchup on my beans, Anakin.
Master Annie, there's too many of them.
Nah, I think Anakin probably just mowed him down.
I really thought you were gonna say that. I don't know.
That's my headcanon.
Yeah,
As sick as it is, I'm not a parent, so I also think it's kind of funny.
and it's not the first time he's killed children.
Right. And if you don't want to think that's how he did it, you can always go with the Lego version where he just trapped them in cages.
Is that really what they do in the Lego version? It's been so long.
Yeah, I think it's like it's an old Lego comic.
Oh, a comic. Okay.
Yeah, of Order 66 happening, and Anakin puts them in cages.
Gotta get Inquisitors from somewhere.
No, Anakin mowed them all down. No children.
Well, oh, never mind. I was gonna bring up Jedi Fallen Order, but it is not relevant. It's a good game, but I had some timeline mixed up, so I was incorrect, so I'm not even gonna mention it.
It's okay.
Oh, I should mention how I'm incorrect?
No, I'm just saying it's okay that you realize you're incorrect. I get confused a lot with timeline too sometimes.
Yeah.
Like the fact that Ezra from Rebels is the same age as Luke and Leia.
Oh, yeah.
They were all three born on Empire Day.
Dang. Too bad he gets... Well, I won't spoil anything else from Rebels.
Stop spoiling Rebels and Clone Wars.
What? Listen. Clone Wars has been out. Okay. I guess the last season just came out a few months ago.
Exactly.
But we thought we weren't getting any more for a while.
Could I tell you another favorite line that I have from an upcoming scene?
Yes.
Good. Because it's a very simple line. And it's Bail Organa going to the Jedi Temple because he's noticed something's not quite right.
You know, just the fact that it's...
And on fire.
Yeah, on fire.
And he meets a couple of clones outside on this landing platform. And they, tell him there's been a rebellion, but they're handling it. And then they, of course,
Murder a child.
power up their rifles. No, that doesn't happen yet. They power up their rifles. They all switch the safeties off, and Bail Organa just looks at him and goes, "Oh, well, they tell him it's time for you to leave, sir," and he goes, "And so it is." It's so simple, but I think it's a really powerful line.
No, I completely agree. And it just makes it even more sad that he, kind of gets a little blown up later.
Does Bail Organa die?
I think he dies on Alderaan.
Huh. I don't know.
I mean, I don't.
Probably in a book.
I don't know for sure, but we never see him again after that, from my knowledge.
Yeah, he's in Rogue One.
Is he? I don't think he is.
He is in Rogue One.
I'll go.
Do you need to look it up again and be wrong?
But Rogue One takes place before Alderaan is blown up.
Yeah, like a couple days.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. He dies on Alderaan, so he would still be alive at that moment, but not a few days from then.
I don't know if he died on Alderaan.
We'll just have to look it up later.
We will. Either way. So back to the movie.
Back to the movie that we're actually talking about.
It's nighttime. Or no, it's not nighttime yet. Anyways, the Obi-Wan's swam away and climbed up the wall. And he's actually hearing one of the troopers give a scouting report back to Cody. And, they're like, he couldn't have survived that fall. He's obviously not alive.
Right.
We're not able to find him. And I kind of wondered if Cody really even wanted to find his body.
Ooh, okay. So, I think that would just have to depend on the chip, really, if how much it's still affecting him. And I think at that point it probably is. And I don't want to make you sad, my friend, but we know that it basically gives them a bloodlust for the Jedi, and they're not going to stop until they're dead. Their mind is so clouded by the chip, and we really get to see that again in the Clone Wars.
No, Cody didn't want to find his body because they were friends.
They were definitely friends, and I do think that okay, no, I'm not going to say anything because I don't know how true it is, but I don't know. You live with that, my friend.
I will.
All right.
So Anakin's about to go to Mustafar.
Yes.
And it's just something I noted, but he has a line where Anakin's talking about what's going on, and Padme is the last priority that he says. He says, that the Jedi have started this rebellion or whatever.
Right.
And he's talking about, his allegiance, and he says, my allegiance is to, roughly, I don't know exactly how the line goes, but I know for a fact the order is, he says it's to the Chancellor, the Republic, the Senate, and then her.
Yeah.
So just another, point of how clouded and confused Anakin is right now. She's his number one priority, but the first thing that comes out of his mouth is the Chancellor.
Right, which goes into what we were talking about earlier, where he says, tells Anakin he will only be strong enough in the dark side after he kills all the Jedi in the temple. He walks in, and he walks out a different person than he was. More clouded by the dark side, we'll say.
He was very confused already.
Poor Anakin.
I'm sure mass murder didn't help.
Mass murder did not help, especially people that were his friends, especially children.
I don't know, maybe one of those kids weren't very nice to him.
I just could imagine one of the kids running by, kicking him in the shin and saying, "Yippee!"
Or just you were trouble in class 3 weeks ago, and then just decapitates a child.
Maybe. But, think about it. One of those kids probably would, well, can't say for sure, but there's a chance that one of those kids might have been his next Padawan.
Nah, I think he was done taking children under his wing.
Ahsoka was a handful, and he was probably heartbroken, which, again, also plays into him leaving the Jedi Order. Watch Clone Wars.
I don't think he left.
Oh, okay, yes. Sorry. I was thinking of Ahsoka when I was saying that. Watch the Clone Wars. It really adds a lot more to him betraying and murdering the Jedi Order. Was that phrased correctly?
That's better than leaving.
Yeah.
Either way, he left with a bang.
That is true.
So, Obi-Wan and Yoda are on the way back to Coruscant to figure out what's really going on.
Right. And wait.
And
We completely kind of skipped over Yoda's Order 66 scene.
I don't really care about Yoda's Order 66 scene. Besides, he decapitates a couple
He
clones.
does.
Like, what did you really think was going to happen? He's the Grand Master of the
But can
Jedi.
we
Of course, he
just
knows he's about to get shot in the
appreciate-
back.
Can we just appreciate the fact that it's Chewie that helps him escape?
Well, they get him back to his ship, yeah. Him and Tarful.
That is true. I don't know. I just appreciate Chewie. I like the cameo.
I do too. I thought it was neat.
And I just appreciate that he actually does something. I like cameos that are just in the background. But I also appreciate cameos where they're a little helpful.
Chewie's always helpful.
Chewie is always helpful. Anyway, continue on. I'm sorry I derailed the conversation.
It's fine. I always appreciate your derailments.
Thank you.
But so, Obi-Wan Yoda on the way back to the temple, while Anakin's on his way to Mustafar to take care of the rest of the Separatists.
Right.
And that's the last time R2 gets to see Anakin. Is on that landing platform on Mustafar.
Stop.
He never sees Anakin Skywalker again.
Oh, that makes me so sad. No. Why do you have to bring that up? No.
We also get to see Anakin's Sith eyes for the first time.
Yeah, he is fully consumed in that moment.
As he's mowing down every Separatist in the room.
You know, just a little more murder to push you over the edge.
Right, but while that's going on, the emergency Senate meeting is happening back on Coruscant.
Right.
And again, it's another one of my favorite lines. Padme saying, "So this is how liberty dies," with thunderous applause.
Yeah.
Awesome line.
Such an amazing line. And Palpatine just does such a good job of playing the situation on how the Jedi led a rebellion. They tried to assassinate him. They've disfigured his face permanently. I mean, he's just really mooching that crowd.
Oh, everything is perfectly planned.
Yeah.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Hate that
I love
guy.
it. I like it.
Oh no, I like it too. He does it well. Doesn't mean I like him though.
I kind of like the Emperor.
Okay, as a villain, yes, I do like him.
Absolute genius.
Yes, and I appreciate how smart and powerful in the Force he is. But I also think he's a jerk, and Anakin should have killed him.
But the flashback back to Mustafar. Did Anakin save Newt Gunray for last? Because he kills all the other Separatists, and Newt Gunray is the last one we see die.
I didn't think about that. You're probably right. He had a bone to pick.
Did he? I mean, of course he did, but I mean, I don't know why I thought of that, but I was like, Newt Gunray's the last one alive. And, he's, of course, begging with him, but
Right.
I was like, I wonder if he carried that hate for, 10 years or over 10 years of being like, you tried to kill my wife before she was my wife 10 years ago. Time for you to die.
Time for you to die. Oh, well. And then he also tried to have her assassinated in Attack of the Clones. And I'm sure, I mean, I can't remember, but I would not be surprised if there were moments in the Clone Wars where he tried to have Padme killed as well. But
Oh, yeah, he definitely doesn't like her.
I do think that another theory that could go, it's not an opposing theory, they could be together. There's the saying, I open where I close, and so it's almost poetic, the fact that Newt Gunray is the first of the Separatist leaders that we see, and the last to die.
That's a very good point.
Thank you, thank you.
Again, you and your eloquent thoughts.
I appreciate it.
That college education is paying off already.
Oh, I'm glad. I wasn't sure.
You've only spent almost the past 5 years just to sound good on a Star Wars podcast with your friend.
Hey, if that's what college has led me to, that's what college has led me to.
Now that's a wonderful attitude about spending crazy amounts of money.
Yeah. Okay, so I actually do have, I think, a couple lines. Oh, yeah. Okay, so there's something we missed. We completely skipped over it. While there's a third scene playing in the background while they're talking to the Senate and Anakin is slaughtering the Separatists. It is Yoda and Obi-Wan infiltrating the temple, slaughtering the clones that are there, and changing the message for the Jedis to know. But something that I thought was very interesting is that so I've got 2 points here before we move on. I just thought it was funny. They're talking about how it's the older group of younglings. They're all laying dead, and Yoda says they were killed by a lightsaber. And Obi-Wan asks, "Who could have done this?" And I just love the way it was edited because it immediately cuts to Anakin slaughtering the Separatists.
Right. It's like, who would be capable of this type of thing? And then we just see Anakin just having a good old time. It's Tusken Raider Party Part 2.
Right. And then I think, oh man, I think this is a little before that. It's when they're on the way to Coruscant and they get a video message. Well, Bail Organa does, basically saying, you're requested to come to this meeting. And they're talking about what Palpatine's going to do, and one of them says, the Chancellor won't be able to control the thousands of planets without the Senate. And that's where I wrote, ... for now. Because I don't think I'd ever clicked why they really needed the Death Star before. Like, obviously, I knew it was to control the planets, but they basically had control of the planets, and that's when I realized, like, it's so they wouldn't need the Senate.
Right. The ultimate power of the Death Star, that technological terror, was to keep everybody else in line.
Right.
So he could fully dissolve the Senate.
Right. I don't know. It just never... It had never really clicked before.
Well, it does now.
It does now. Because, I mean, they don't dissolve the Senate till, 19 years later?
It's quite a while.
Yeah. Anyway, next we get, and feel free to jump in if you have anything before this, but basically Obi-Wan and Yoda discussing what their plan should be, and they decide that, or well, Yoda says, I will go face Palpatine, and Obi-Wan begs Yoda for it to be the other way around, because he just does not want to face Anakin.
No, that was actually my next note, was the fact that Obi-Wan would rather go and fight Palpatine and die than have to kill Anakin.
Right?
Because like you said, Yoda tells him directly, like, you're not strong enough to take on the Emperor. I'm the only one that can do it. And well, since I'm the only one, that means you gotta go kill your brother. Have fun with that.
Okay. Counterpoint. They could have gone and faced the Emperor together and handled Anakin later.
But that just gives Anakin more time to
Grow in the dark side. And that's a really good point. He was continually growing stronger in the dark side, and I mean, this is a whole nother argument that we'll probably get into maybe in episode 4, but maybe Yoda and Obi-Wan wouldn't have been able to handle Anakin.
I don't even think it was that. I think it was just Yoda trying to kill two birds with one stone, quite literally.
That is true.
Because they were already so far behind in being able to try to stop this that, you know, they think they're the last two Jedi alive.
Right.
For the most part.
Right.
So he's like, well, the only way to stop this is if we get the Master and the Apprentice at this point, right? That's always their thought process as Jedis. Well, if there's Sith, we know there's at least two.
Right.
So if we kill both of them, then our problems are gone.
Our problems are solved. Yeah. Whew. Okay. Anyway, I don't know. Again, it's not what happened. I just like exploring the what if kind of scenarios.
No, I think that was a valid thing to bring up, is Obi-Wan doesn't want to do this at all.
Yeah.
So, again, I said it last episode about Padme. She's the most perceptive person in the world. Obi-Wan's there for like 5 minutes to try to figure out where Anakin went, and immediately Padme's just like, "You're gonna go to kill him."
Yeah. She knows. She knows.
She's a genius, that woman. God, Padme's so amazing. A wonderful woman.
Well, we'll talk about it more in a few minutes.
Nope, we're skipping over that part and going to the end.
I mean, that... okay, anyway. So then it goes, Anakin's on Mustafar, and he's crying. I really...
But you skipped over Obi-Wan saying how sorry he is.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, talk about it.
I just like that line.
I do too. Yeah. So Anakin is crying. I really think he knows. Like, he knows he is in the wrong. And I think we should probably obviously, I mean, it's Hayden Christensen, it's the same actor, same body, but we should probably start clarifying if it's Darth Vader or if it's Anakin, because in that moment, I really think that's Anakin crying, not Darth Vader.
I agree, because, you know, like, literally, like, 2 scenes ago, we see him with the Sith eyes, and then now he's crying, and his eyes are back to their original color.
Right.
So I agree. I think that was the moment where we see Anakin again. Just like I said, you know, a little while ago about the conflict starts right there in the Chancellor's office.
Right.
Of who he really is and Darth Vader.
Right. And I think
he can't even deal with the fact that he just murdered all these people. He can't even be in the same room with all the dead people. He has to wait outside because he can't deal with the fact that he just did that.
Right. And I don't think that's a conflict that really truly goes away. Now, there are moments where he is Darth Vader a lot. I mean, basically for the next 19 years, but that conflict between the two is always there, and it's such a big theme for the next trilogy.
Yes.
So this is, I just love C-3PO, because Padme gets her ship ready, and C-3PO just gets on board all happy. He has no idea what's going on, completely oblivious.
I think I'm getting a hang of this flying thing.
Yeah. Poor C-3PO.
And Obi-Wan just sneaks out of some crates onto the ship.
Right. We'll get into
That
this.
Obi-Wan.
We'll get into that later. So
Well, no, the next scene is her on Mustafar.
right.
So we see from, back in episode 2, Anakin's little dream of dictatorship that he had with Padme is he's trying to really sell that idea to her.
Really trying to sell it, and I think this is Darth Vader at this moment. I don't really think this is Anakin, because whatever moment he had where Anakin was crying and he had control of his body again, it's over. By the time Padme gets there, he's Darth Vader again. And I think he's part of it is, yes, he's trying to justify it to her. I think he's trying to justify it to himself as well.
Of course. Well, he's so torn up from basically just committing mass murder all day.
Yeah.
Now he's supposed to face the one that he loves the most out of anyone, arguably, and now he's got to try to sell her on this idea of, I'm not crazy, you're crazy if you don't want to do this.
Right.
Like, everything will be fine. I'm more powerful than I've ever been. I can destroy the Emperor. We don't need him. And we can just rule the galaxy together. You can be the Senate, and I can make everybody just do what you say if I have to.
Right. Which I really think, and this is another what if, I'm so sorry. Obviously, in that moment, that is Darth Vader, and he's really trying to pressure Padme. But I really think that if Obi-Wan hadn't have been there, after a little bit, not just right away, but after a while of them talking, I think there's a good chance she could have brought him back to the light. At least enough for him to say, oh, wait, I just really messed up.
I don't know. His crazy talk is...
Right. And I think...
After the whole, let's take over the galaxy together, she was kind of done.
She was. And I think with or without Obi-Wan, he probably would have force choked her.
I don't see Padme getting off that planet by herself, that's for sure.
Yeah. But, like, my whole point is, I think if he hadn't have been consumed by his rage for Obi-Wan being there, I think he still would have choked Padme out, which I'm not justifying. That was not okay. But I do think it would have clicked what he'd just done. Because, yeah, he murdered a bunch of people and he cared about them, but this is his wife. This is his unborn child. I think it would have snapped him out of it. But again, just a what if. Let's continue on with what actually happens.
Right, what actually happens. And I just want to point out the fact that Mother Goose does endorse force choking women.
No, I do not. That is not true. Someone's gonna take that clip out of context. They're gonna cancel me on Twitter.
I want that to happen. Anyways, what really happens? Obi-Wan stumbles off the ship, and Anakin immediately starts, well, he force chokes or whatever. We've talked about it. But he blames everyone for what's happening in his life but himself.
Yeah.
In his, little scream off with Anakin before they, while they're arguing, I just noticed that he blames everything going on but the actions that he chose.
Yeah.
It's which makes sense because Anakin's still so young.
Yeah, he's what? He was 9 in the first one. So 19, he's actually our age. He's like 23, 24.
Yeah, like 21, 22 or something.
Yeah.
But of course he's not going to see anything but his point of view because, well, he's got so much going on inside of him. But then he's young. He's not going to blame himself. It's everybody's fault but his own.
Right. And I will say, there are some things that weren't his fault. But he did do a lot of wrong, and he should take the blame. But again, as we talked about just a little bit ago, he's trying to justify it to himself.
Right.
Even to Obi-Wan.
There's got to be a way to make all of the killings go away.
There's got to be a way to make it okay.
Which, I don't know if you've ever seen, just a random tangent, the art of... It's Darth Vader whenever he's in his, like, little chamber thing that we see in the next trilogy.
Yeah.
And behind him, he's got the helmet off and, like, his hand in his head, or his head in his hands. And there's all the dead Force ghosts behind him. Have you seen that artwork before?
Yes. Yeah.
That's, like, one of my favorite things. Like, arts. Because I think it's so true. And I think that picture explains a lot of what happens in this movie.
Yeah.
And why he is the way he is.
And that's along the lines of why I believe that no matter how dark Darth Vader got, and no matter how many horrible things he did, there was always still a part of Anakin trying to get out.
I think so too.
Now, I mean, we see that even Darth Vader, like, we'll talk about this a lot more in the next trilogy, but Darth Vader is a broken man. Like, he may be a menace, he may be terrifying, but he's just a puppet.
He's a pawn.
A pawn, yeah. Anyway, I think it's time
Back to this trilogy.
we talk about the fight.
No, it hasn't happened yet.
Oh.
I'm still doing things.
Okay, I did have a note. I don't know exactly what line I wrote this down for, but I did say, wow, was Anakin's mind clouded? And just his whole conversation with Padme and with Obi-Wan, like, the dark side just has such a grip on him.
I don't even know if it's the dark side. I think it's just him.
Well, I think it is him, and I think he's trying to justify it. But there is also the tug of the dark side on him. I think there's multiple factors that are really, like, pulling the strings, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I just think he's so messed up inside that he doesn't know which way is up, down, left, or right.
Right.
So whatever he feels in the moment is the right choice to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that's what I have written down, is that during their whole talk between him and Obi-Wan, is they're both just really black and white people.
Yes, they really are.
As far as their viewpoints. Because Anakin sees it this way and Obi-Wan sees it this way, and, well, if you're thinking that, then you're wrong and I'm right. Well, no, you're wrong and I'm right.
Right. And there's a lot of gray in the world. And
There
I
is.
mean, don't get me wrong. I do think that Obi-Wan was in the right.
But this is coming from a guy who also thinks that you should force choke women.
I never
so
said
I don't know how
that.
much I can believe you.
I never said that. I literally said it's not justified.
Speaking of force choking women, Yoda is going to face Emperor Palpatine.
Right.
While everything's happening on Mustafar before the fight. I like how he just walks into the office and immediately throws the guards up against the wall.
Yoda was not messing around. There was no mercy in Yoda's eyes.
No, him and Anakin were on the same track.
Different sides of the same coin.
And, you know, the whole fight goes on with them. The fight on Mustafar is happening. And Palpatine tries to run away. And it's great how Yoda says, if you're so powerful and so strong in the dark side, why would you try to leave?
Yeah. I don't think Palpatine's sure. I mean, he did lose to Mace Windu. I don't know if he's sure or not if he can beat Yoda.
It could have been that, but he also knew that Anakin was in trouble too.
That is true.
So he's got his golden egg potentially about to be lost, so I'm sure the Emperor's got a lot on his mind right
He
now.
probably does.
So the best fight in cinematic history is taking place at this point.
Right.
The longest duel in cinematic history as well.
Yes. And I just want to say real quick, I feel, okay, the fight between Yoda and Palpatine, which is not the fight we're talking about, is also really, really good, but it gets overshadowed a lot by the fight on Mustafar, which is completely understandable. It's just, that's a good fight too.
I don't really care as much about Yoda fighting the Emperor.
I don't either, but I do think it does hold importance in the story, but not as much, if that makes sense. Like I said, overshadowed.
We'll talk about its importance here in a sec, because I have like two things that go together.
Okay, great. And I didn't actually write a lot of notes on this. Like, I just sat and I just took it all in, if I'm being honest.
Right. No, I had a pretty big problem with that with this episode. I found myself like just watching the movie instead of, and sometimes I do that to get ready for the episode. I'm just like, no, I'm just gonna sit back and watch this scene.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's for.
Yeah.
And then the other part of my brain is like, no, you need to write down these feelings now.
Write out your feelings.
No, but the part where they're fighting and they're back in the room where Anakin killed all the Separatists, it gets memed a lot, as my counterpart Elijah likes to say, but how they're spinning the lightsabers,
Yes. Yeah.
And people think that that's just like totally unwarranted. But in my opinion, it shows us that Anakin and Obi-Wan have been together for so long. Of course they have the same ideas. They've been training and sparring together for over a decade. Of course their fighting styles are going to be similar, even though they do use different forms. But of course they're going to have the same type of maneuvers and ideas during the fight, which is why I like the lightsaber spinning thing.
I do too.
Even though you may think it's pointless, I think it just shows who they are as master and apprentice.
Right. Because, I mean, we've stated multiple times in part one is that they really are in sync. And even though they're on opposing sides, I think they still are in sync with one another.
Right. And this is the first time we really see, in my opinion, Anakin's like full power.
Yeah.
From the start of this duel to the end.
No, I agree.
He's just relentless. And he's absolutely just a powerhouse in this fight, in my opinion.
No, I completely agree. And this, I did want to talk about this. It's, I know we kind of disagreed a little bit in the part one about if Anakin had reached his full potential yet. And this fight is why I think he hadn't. Because I completely agree. We're seeing Anakin at his current best. Fighting-wise, not character-wise, but I still think he had room to grow. I mean, like you said just a little bit ago, he's still really young. And I think I just can't even imagine how powerful he would have become with a few more years of training.
I don't know. I think he's super powerful right
Oh
now.
no,
So
I'm not saying he isn't. He is incredibly powerful. Possibly, arguably, the most powerful at that moment.
I think this was the height of his strength right here.
Technically, I completely agree. But I think more what ifs. Let's just keep going. I'll talk about it in a minute.
Flashback to Yoda and the Emperor back on Coruscant fighting. I really like the shot of... I'm completely done with their fight, unless you have more to say on it.
With Yoda and Palpatine? Or...
Yes.
Okay. No, really, I don't have many notes on it. I just felt so bad for Yoda after he lost, and he's crawling through the pipes. And just calling for help. That's all he can do.
Right. I just like the shot of his cloak hanging on the pole.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know why I like that shot. I just think it reminds me of seeing Ben's cloak in episode 4 just on the ground.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I completely see that.
So I don't know why I thought of that, but I did. And Yoda, this is his ultimate failure.
Yeah.
Right here. He couldn't do the job that he was supposed to do. Meanwhile, Obi-Wan's trying his hardest to finish.
Right.
And we're pretty much at the end of the fight here, and Obi-Wan gets onto the one platform, and Anakin's still trapped on one of the poles that falls into the lava. And you can tell Obi-Wan just really hopes that Anakin will go off of the edge and he won't have to do anything else.
Right. Because then it wouldn't have to be him to take Anakin down.
Right. No, it was just the circumstances.
Yeah.
And it's sad.
It really is sad.
Are you ready for the end?
Well,
not the end, but the end of the duel.
Yes. Yes, I am.
Okay, so we all know what happens. He chops his arms and legs off. And then he catches on fire.
I have the high ground.
But yes. So Yoda reaches out, like I said a second ago, and gets picked up by Bail Organa and tells him, that he's failed. And then we see the end of the duel. Obi-Wan mention, before he cuts his arms and legs off, that Obi-Wan admits to Anakin that he's failed him. So I just love that those 2 points coming together.
Yeah.
That they both realize they can't achieve... Well, Obi-Wan almost achieves his mission, but he's failed himself.
So poetic.
It is. And then Obi-Wan can't even look at Anakin. Even before he catches on fire, he can barely stand to look at Anakin.
Right. I think my next note isn't until after he's bacon.
No, I have nothing
Okay.
further to say.
So something to keep in mind is that the dark side and the hatred filled by the dark side basically keeps people alive. It's how Darth Maul stayed alive when he was cut in half, and it's how Anakin How Anakin stayed alive in this moment after losing multiple limbs and being burnt to a crisp. It's the hatred that keeps them alive, which is just something to keep in mind, because that will come back into play when we talk about episode 6.
Yes. My brain was having to work very hard.
Are you okay?
No, yeah, I think something's burning, and I think it's my brain.
And Anakin.
Maybe that's what I smell. But I love the mirroring that this movie does to the past movies, to upcoming events within the movie. We see Anakin in the medical capsule, back on Coruscant, which directly mirrors Padme's funeral in a few scenes.
Ooh, I would.
Except with Anakin in the capsule, there's no one there. Nobody. He has no one besides the Emperor leading him down in the rain.
Yes, I see what you're
and
talking.
a couple of clones on the platform. And then whenever we see Padme's funeral, it's the entire planet of Naboo, basically. But
I never thought about that. That is very poetic. Good catch.
Thank you. You know, sometimes I think about things.
I know you do. I know.
So while Anakin's surgery's going on and Padme's delivering the children, I just thought it's really cool that we get to see inside of the Vader mask while it's being put on. And you get to see how Vader sees. I don't know. I always thought that was so cool whenever I saw it for the first time in theaters as a kid. And every time I see it now, I'm like, I just want to see more of inside the helmet.
I do. I completely agree. And as we talked about in our very first episode, this is my favorite scene in this film. Let me be clear. I do not think it is the best scene, but it is my...
You think the force choking scene is the best one?
No. The fight on Mustafar is definitely the best scene. But my favorite is this scene, and it comes down to the dualities of the surgeries. Because both of them are dying. And even though Darth Vader is being put back together, even more of Anakin has died. And
is he being put back together or taken apart?
Yeah. I don't know. I just think it's really poetic as we see them both basically having surgery. And they both die at the end. I mean, I will stand by the fact that I do believe a part of Anakin is still in there, but he is mostly Darth Vader. And also, as Anakin and Padme die, we have a new hope being born in Luke and Leia.
We do. So, I don't know, just seeing in the mask, hearing Vader's breath, like in theaters, that was probably like one of the coolest experiences I think I'll ever have in my life.
And it makes me so mad that people just meme that scene with him. Like, it goes so much deeper that they meme the, oh, she died of sadness, and they memed his no line. But first, let me ask you. Your spouse, the person you love the most in the world, and your child, you just found out that you, in quotation marks, because we know that's not really what happened, but you murdered them in your anger. What would you do? Like,
Right.
I don't know. I think people want to see Darth Vader as this cold, uncaring killer, but he was a person who loved his family.
Or was he more man than machine now?
Well, yeah, that is true.
Or more machine than man?
More machine than man.
Oh man, dyslexia is a real killer. But no, I completely agree. That seems very powerful, and just the way that Palpatine explains it to him. You know, he says that you killed her, and we see him in the background smiling because he knows that's not the truth.
Right.
But it's another way to get him closer to Palpatine. Like, pretty much seal the deal on. He knows for a fact that, well, Anakin's mine now forever.
Right.
There's no way he'll go back if there's nothing for him to go back to.
Which leads me to my whole point from earlier. I completely agree. Darth Vader / Anakin was at their most powerful on the Battle of Mustafar. But following that, he is a puppet, a true 100% like puppet of Palpatine. No sneaking behind people's back, no lying. Directly his puppet for the rest of his life until his final moments. And Palpatine does what he needs to ensure that Darth Vader never becomes more powerful than him. And part of that is like the parts that he gets that actually create Darth Vader. They're not. It's not put together well, so he is weaker, and that's something we find out in the books. He has this big argument with Palpatine because he's like, "Why did you have the droids put me together like this?" And Palpatine just kind of plays it off, but it's so that Darth Vader would not ever become more powerful than him. He's ensuring that he will be his
He could never
puppet.
rise up against him.
Right, and so that was my whole point earlier. Mustafar Anakin was his most powerful that we ever see him, but I do think he had the potential to grow more powerful if he had not become Palpatine's true puppet, if that makes sense.
It does.
Cool.
And
Oh, go ahead.
did you know that that's actually Hayden Christensen in the suit?
I did, yes. Did our listeners?
That he actually he got to do it, and they gave him like these really tall boots because Darth Vader's like really tall. Well, David Prowse, the original man who portrayed Darth Vader, as far as who was inside the suit,
Right.
was a very large man. So they had to give him some big boots so Hayden Christensen can play it.
Let's be honest. He has robot legs. Those could be as long as they need to be.
It's true.
So following this, we get Yoda telling Obi-Wan some very important news.
Before that,
No, not again.
just the imagery. Yes, again, I'm gonna go to you forever and ever. Just the no, it's quick. The whole like Frankenstein type deal with now we don't really see Vader and Anakin as the same person anymore, obviously because he's wearing armor.
Right.
But besides the fact, he doesn't walk like Anakin, he doesn't talk like Anakin, but he really has become just this monster.
Yeah.
Like Frankenstein's monster. That's how I think of it.
No, I think that's...
Whenever he rips off the table and he walks like the way he does. One, because he wasn't used to his new legs yet.
Yeah.
But two, because that's an obvious reference to Frankenstein's monster.
Right. No, I think that's a really good analogy.
Now talk about the return of Qui-Gon.
Okay. Just how excited were you when you heard Obi-Wan? I mean, obviously, you kind of figure when Yoda's talking about it, but just the moment when Obi-Wan excitedly says, Qui-Gon?
Right. No, that's an awesome moment because Obi-Wan's lost everything now, but he gets his old master back.
Right. And we can see just a little bit of hope in his eyes.
Just a little.
And it ties into episode 2 where we hear Qui-Gon's voice. And so we know it, but we actually get to learn that was actually Qui-Gon calling out to Anakin in that moment.
Right. And Yoda picking up on
Right.
it. Padme's funeral is, I've already mentioned it, but they didn't hide her pregnancy, so the kids will be safe.
Right. They made it look like she was still pregnant, as if the kids really did die with her.
Right, so they'd be safe, which I think was super smart. And of course, she's buried with that stupid Japor snippet necklace in her hands.
You're just mad because Anakin gave it to her and not you.
He didn't deserve her. What did he do? He killed her. And you like that.
I do not.
You said that you enjoyed the force choking scene.
I do not. But I do think...
And that you endorse her death.
I do not. But I do think it's really sweet that she was buried with the necklace.
No, it is. It's very sweet that it came back again. And even though I'm mad about it, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. So I have one last note. How about you, my friend?
I have two.
All right.
What's your note? because I feel like mine usually take longer than
Okay.
yours do.
Just how beautiful the planet of Alderaan is in that moment.
Well, it reminds me a lot of Naboo. It's almost like Naboo, but more mountainous.
Yeah, I just thought it was a really beautiful planet, and it was really exciting to actually get to see the planet.
Well, you do see the planet, but not for long.
To see it from on the planet, if that makes sense.
Yes, I agree. It is a beautiful planet.
Yes.
So at the end there, we get to see on the bridge of a Star Destroyer, we get to see not only the beginning of the Death Star, but also Tarkin is there as well,
Yeah,
which is super cool.
I thought so too.
Which Tarkin is in Clone Wars, if you'd watch Clone Wars.
How many times are we gonna say watch Clone Wars?
I will say it as many times as I need to, every episode if I have to.
Without a doubt.
So my final note is a musical note. I'm glad you mentioned Alderaan because you get Leia's theme right there from the next trilogy. So we have Leia's theme into A New Hope.
Right.
That musical score of Luke on Tatooine and sing the Twin Suns.
So good.
I think you couldn't have ended on a better shot for this movie than first Uncle Owen staring at the Twin Suns by himself, and then having him and Aunt Beru holding Luke
Right?
and looking at them, and Obi-Wan watching over them. I don't think there was a better way to end this movie.
No, I completely agree.
Oh boy.
I'm sorry. I just love this movie so much, and I'm sorry. It's my favorite, and nobody can take that from me.
Will you die on that hill of favoritism?
Gladly. Multiple times.
That's all I have notes-wise.
Me too.
Boy, that was a big episode.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, we had to split it into 2 parts.
Yeah. I'm glad we did, though.
Oh.
I would have been sad having to cram all of that into one episode.
I don't think it would have been possible.
I don't think so. There would have been a lot of holes.
There would have been a lot of holes. You wouldn't have gotten to talk about how much you like that Padme gets force choked and dies.
No, stop. Somebody's going to take that out of context.
It's true, though. You love Darth Jar Jar. Obviously, you would love the fact that Padme gets force choked and dies.
It's not true. How about we move into our next segment?
That's true. There is another segment
There is
today,
another segment today.
which I'm actually pretty excited about.
Me too.
Mother Goose told me before we started this episode that we actually have a question from a listener today.
We do. So this question comes from Apple Juice. Thank you so much for sending in the question. We both really appreciate it. And it is, who is your favorite Star Wars character and why?
It could be a what?
You're right. It could be a what.
Why don't you take this first? I'm interested to hear.
Okay, so my favorite Star Wars character is Darth Revan. I love his story, and I love Knights of the Old Republic. It is my favorite Star Wars game. I've played it multiple times, and I just love the fact that you really get to choose his story. Now, obviously, in canon, he does choose the light side in the end, but for those of our listeners who don't really know, he was a Jedi. He fought in a war. He went off with a bunch of other Jedi, basically looking for secrets to help them win the war. He comes back as a Sith, starts a whole nother war. In the process of that war, he gets captured, he loses his memory, comes back as a Jedi, and then helps basically stop that war. I just think it's a really interesting story, and I love the kind of flip-flop that he does multiple times.
Wow, that was a lot.
Oh, was it? I feel like I was kind of short, but thank you.
No, it was short for probably that story.
Yeah, it is.
And that's all in one video game?
So, the first war is not. And they actually, most of the second war isn't. The video game picks up right after he wakes up for the first time after losing his memory. So you basically get to take control of him, and you get to go to like Jedi schools, you can go to Sith schools. It is completely player choice on what side you follow. But canon-wise, he does choose the light side in the end.
So this is books too, right?
Yes, I do believe there are some novels as well. But it is just an amazing series. You should definitely play it if you haven't.
Right, because Revan carries a purple and a red lightsaber.
Yeah. He is one of the coolest looking Siths as well.
Well, he's got like the Mandalorian kind of look to him.
Which, if I remember right, and I might be wrong, so feel free to send us an email and correct me. The first war was against the Mandalorians. And so he leaves basically with his fleet to go find a way how to beat them. The war was coming to an end, and then comes back, and all the Jedi that went with him are now Sith. And it's a lot more complicated. It was a very short summary. I think a lot of the Jedis that went with him were wanting to continue the war. Like, the Jedi that stayed basically were like, hey, let's maybe find a peaceful resolution. And they were a little war hungry, so it's no surprise they fell to the dark side. And again, it's been a while since I've played the game and read into the lore, so I might be wrong on a couple details here and there, but that's the basic story.
I like that.
Yes. Who is your favorite Star Wars character?
It's obviously Salacious Crumb.
Oh no.
It's not Salacious Crumb.
Oh good, okay.
Because you know who that is, don't you, Elijah?
Yeah, totally.
Why don't you tell me who he is, just so I'm sure.
Why don't you just real quick maybe tell listeners why he's your favorite, and then I'll tell you who he is.
As I watch you Google who Salacious Crumb is?
Don't at me like that.
I will. Salacious Crumb isn't even my favorite character.
Sorry, it just popped up who he is. Do you want to tell them, or should I?
No, everybody knows who Salacious Crumb is.
Okay, well, if you don't know, like me, or didn't know, he is the little almost rat bird thing that hangs out with Jabba the Hutt. Oh, he's a monkey lizard, not a rat bird.
Yes, he's a Kowakian monkey lizard.
Yeah. Anyway.
No, he's not my favorite. I would say lately, my favorite character is probably the Mandalorian right now.
Ooh.
I don't like to stick with just one favorite, and I think it changes over time.
No, I completely agree. But
I would say right now, the most compelling for me is probably the Mandalorian.
Yeah, which I really want to talk about the Mandalorian, because I think we won't talk about it now, but I think there's some multiple meanings in the actual title of the series. But we'll get into that whenever we talk about it.
I know. I don't even know what we're going to do next.
Oh, don't you worry. I got lots of ideas.
Lots of ideas. Well, before...
Anyway.
I just have, one thing I have to tell you about Mandalorian.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. I'm sorry I cut you off.
The man who played Jango Fett in Episode 2 has been cast in The Mandalorian. I don't know if you heard that.
I have, yes.
And of course, rumors are that he's going to play possibly Boba Fett. But I'm thinking, what if it's actually he plays a clone again?
Oh. Okay, hear me out.
Like somebody from the Clone Wars. I mean, if we get Boba Fett, that's cool. I'm not a huge Boba Fett guy. I mean, Boba Fett's cool, but if it was one of the clone troopers, I'd be way more down with that.
Yes. Okay. Now remind me real quick. When does this take place? Is this after the fall of the Empire or before?
After.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just couldn't remember for sure. Which, I mean, Boba Fett crawls out of the Sarlacc pit. He survives. So that would be really interesting. But
Does he, or is that Legends now?
I'll have to look into that. We'll let you guys know when we actually get to that moment, if he's alive or not. But he is. Oh, sorry. Counter offer, instead of Boba Fett, what if he was Rex?
Right, that was my idea with him playing one of the clones, or it could be an unnamed clone.
It could be codename Finn. I can't remember his number. The clone that fell out of the ship with Padme in Attack of the Clones.
It could be.
Could be.
Could be Rex. Could be Cody.
Could be. I can't think of any clone names off the.
Hard Case, Kicks, Fives. Just kidding. Most of those guys died.
Yeah. Oof. And well, okay. So something else to think about is when we see the clones double, their age is twice as fast as ours. So let's see. They were about age 20 when the Clone Wars started. So it's another maybe 23-ish years after that. So they would be.
Well, they're in Rebels.
Yes.
So it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility that we could see clones in The Mandalorian.
Right. They would just be old, is my point.
They weren't that old. Well, they were old in Rebels, but
Right.
they were still pretty bad dudes.
But they would be older, because this is still a few years later, because Rebels ends before A New Hope takes place, right? I haven't watched the ending of Rebels, so I don't know exactly where it ends.
Yes.
Anyway, I feel like I cut you off a little bit. Why is the Mandalorian your favorite character?
I think right now he's like the most compelling character, because he can, even with him removing his helmet, I thought the best thing about the Mandalorian was that he could be anyone.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we'll talk about kind of their whole helmet deal, because a lot of people feel like there's some contradictions between the Clone Wars and the Mandalorian, but we can talk about that when we get to the Mandalorian episodes, or episodes, depending on whatever it turns out to be.
Who knows?
Yeah.
It could be Clone Wars next. It could be Rebels next.
Could be Resistance. I'm just kidding.
I didn't even watch Resistance.
I didn't either. Anyway.
But if you're going to say that, it is the holiday season almost. It could be the holiday special.
It could be the holiday special. Anyway, do you have anything else about the Mandalorian and why he is your favorite character?
No, not unless we were going to do a whole Mandalorian episode now.
We'll talk about that later then. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. If you would like to be featured in our next episode, you can email us your Star Wars questions at Animal Squadron at gmail.com. Again, that is animalsquadron@gmail.com.
Had a hard time there, didn't you?
Yes. Let me live my life.
Well, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you if they want to follow you or get a hold of you, besides the email?
Yeah.
But reach out to the email. I like questions.
Reach out to the email. We love questions, yeah. So if you want to find any more of my content, you can find me at MotherGoose27 on YouTube or TikTok. All of my other social media, that includes my Instagram, my Twitter, my Discord, and my subreddit, are all on my About page on my YouTube channel. HouseDog, how about you? Anything you want to promote?
I have nothing. If you want to follow the Instagram, it's just Animal Squadron Podcast.
Yes.
I haven't done a really good job of keeping up there, but I'll work harder on
Yes,
that. So that you can follow it.
We're actually going to start. It's less of HouseDog's fault. It's more mine. I've got to start editing short clips that we can start posting on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, stuff like that. I said I would do that from the very first episode, and I've really been slacking off. So if you're going to attack anyone...
And I'm pretty lazy and terrible at media anyways, so...
Hey, we're a great duo.
I would say that I am the force-choked Padme to your Anakin.
No.
Yep, that's how I want to end the episode. Anyways, thank you all for listening. For the Animal Squadron podcast, this has been HouseDog and my co-pilot.
Mother goose.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Good night.